At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 350 plus programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Matt Moscona.
I'm very important.
After further review.
Say it one more time.
After further review with Matt Moscona.
And here we go.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio.
Let's ride! Go!
Off and running, hour number 2 here after further review, presented by Sunshine, your hometown John Deere dealer in Louisiana. Musso in for Moscona. Moscona's on vacay. He's back Monday. Last vacay of the year for him. We have had a jam-packed show so far with the Tyrann Mathieu news. Jordan Kitchens, Paul O'Neill along for the ride, and we are very grateful that you are along for the ride here as well. Still plenty to come. We'll get back to the New Orleans Saints. I mean, Tyrann Mathieu, we'll talk plenty about that still. Ross Jackson will be here straight up 5 o'clock to react, and we'll talk about where the Saints go next. We'll also give a little bit of a preview of training camp as they reported here on Tuesday. They open camp on Wednesday. So there's just plenty. Blake Baker was on off the bench this morning with Flynn and Hester and Flynn. So plenty to go here still on this Tuesday. Did want to start this hour with some LSU football. So it's starting to happen now more, and you saw this at SEC Football Media Days where LSU is moving more and more toward the front of the hype train nationally. This isn't altogether new. I mean, earlier in this offseason, even through spring, after they brought in the portal class, you saw a lot of guys, a lot of national media members start to project LSU to make the playoff in 2025. I think that is largely what we all expect. I know I expect LSU to be in the college football playoff here in 2025, and it's kind of one of those things where, man, if not now, when for Brian Kelly. So they are going to be included in every single write-up, every conversation about playoff teams and what if. And I think that's the question, right? Everyone understands, okay, LSU should be in the college football playoff. But what everybody wants to know is, that's great. How can LSU win the college football playoff? Bill Connolly over at ESPN put together a piece highlighting 14 teams in the playoff discussion and the what-ifs that have to come to fruition for those teams to win it all. He broke it down into 3 categories. Teams with 2 ifs, teams with 3 ifs, teams with 4 ifs. LSU fell into the 4 ifs category, which might surprise plenty of you. But it's because, again, nationally, there's still a lot of questions about LSU. Reading through this, I agree with one of them. I mean, let me not say it that way. That's not the right way to say it. Agree with is not the right way to say it. There is one of these out of the 4 that Bill Connolly laid out that, in my opinion, aren't easily debunked. He even went as so far as to debunk one of his own. The first one is if new star receivers emerge, and then in parentheses he's put as usual. Because new star receivers are going to emerge at LSU. You did the work in the transfer portal. Yes. What is it? The top 4 pass catchers from a year ago were gone. But Aaron Anderson's back. Chris Hilton is back. And if he stays healthy, you saw what he's made of down the stretch, really in those last 2 games, the Oklahoma game and the bowl game, where, man, you fully saw it on display, the deep threat that he is. You feel great with that. There, you bring in Nick Anderson, who could be a 1,000-yard guy for you potentially. Barry and Brown, who everybody's tried to tab as the breakout player for LSU. That's not even talking about Kyle Parker. That's not even talking about Tre'Davious Green from the tight end spot, who, again, the last 2 games of the season, really down the stretch, you saw what he could be. Bauer Sharp as well. You look at a guy like Destin Hill, who they brought in and featured plenty in the red zone during spring. Like, that's a given. It would be more of a shock if that doesn't happen. I think everybody understands LSU receivers are going to emerge. You've done nothing but surround Nuss with weapons, and that should really help this offense. So that's an easy one to just kind of, like, if there's any school in the country that deserves the freaking benefit of the doubt at the receiver position, it's LSU. Number 2, if the rebuilt lines hold up. He goes into the defensive line and the offensive line. Talk about the offensive line here in a second. I think the defensive line has a chance to be a strength for LSU. I love the additions that you made on the edge for potential, and I think they are set up for big seasons. A guy like Patrick Payton, a guy like Butler, a guy like Jack Pyburn, who really is focused in on his pass rush. And then, oh, by the way, you have a guy like Gabe Relaford returning. Just look at the production you got out of Braden Swinson and Savion Jones a year ago. Those two combined for over 100 tackles and 13 sacks. Now you add in a guy like Bernard Gooden on the interior, Sadir Mitchell, you get Jacoby and Guillory back, Ahmad Bro, Dom McKinley. They had to play a bunch as freshmen because of the injury to Guillory. They're all back. Like, I think the defensive line, end to end, can be a real strength for LSU. Yes, it looks rebuilt, but there's a lot of veteran presence there. Whether it's Pyburn or Peyton. Again, McKinley and Bro having to play as much as they did. Guillory coming back. More on that momentarily. So, like, that's not even really an if for me. That's an expectation for me. That's one of your strengths. The offensive line, I'm going to hear you on that. But it's also not as dire as Connolly made it out to seem in his piece. The bulk of his rebuilt lines thing was about the defensive line. And the last bit of it says, but the O-line will start all or mostly sophomores and redshirt freshmen. Yikes. And that's just not true. Like, that's flat out wrong. How quickly we forget about Braylon Moore, a redshirt junior who's projects as LSU's starting center coming over in the portal from Virginia Tech, as well as Josh Thompson, a fifth-year senior from the Big Ten in Northwestern. Both of those guys, I would be fall over stunned right now if they're not starters on LSU's offensive line week 1 against Clemson. And then, okay, you can look at, well, what about DJ Chester? He's like a redshirt sophomore, sure, but he started every game last year for you. Your problem spot there is replacing Will Campbell and Emory Jones. It's the 2 tackle spots. You should feel plenty good at guard and center for LSU. You're either going to have a returning starter there in DJ Chester at center, or you're going to bring in a veteran like Moore who you brought in to play the position. Now, I'm not going to completely wave away the offensive line. It is actually my chief concern about LSU this season, that in the secondary. But it's also a work in progress still. And it will be where all eyes turn to most in fall camp. I'm going to take you back to the spring. This was towards the end of spring. Brian Kelly was asked where they were in determining an offensive line. Because remember, LSU rotated so much. They sent out so many different combinations. You know, Braylon Moore would run with the first team one day, run with the second team the next. You'd have DJ Chester at the center spot. Josh Thompson played tackle and some guard on the second and first team. It was just constant in and out. And Brian Kelly after spring was asked, how close are they to naming a starting offensive line?
The mandate was not to go through the spring and name 5 guys. If we went in with that goal, we would not be anywhere near that. But that wasn't the goal. The goal was to get guys in position where we could find out what the best fit was for them individually and for us as a unit and then as LSU as a football team. So it's been moving guys around and finding where the right fits are. And then we'll go into camp and probably say, all right, through the first 8-9 practices will give us some time to make the decision on what that unit is and then build continuity through the back end of preseason camp with the starting 5.
So there you go. This is where they're going to determine that. And I would be fall over stunned, as I said, if Braylon Moore and Josh Thompson aren't starting on LSU's offense. That's why you brought them here, was to start. So you weren't going with just sophomores and redshirt freshmen. Does that mean LSU's offensive line is going to be great? No. And that's why it's chief concern among many. But it's not as dire as it's made out to be there. The other two kind of go hand in hand. We'll start with if the risks are better rewarded. And here Conley talks a lot about Blake Baker and the havoc that he wants to create and risking getting burned, and it kind of forces, mistakes because you weren't as great at the back end of your defense. With the upgrades in the front and the back end, you got Perkins and Weeks back. That's what he highlights. What can that look like? LSU's risks are going to be better rewarded, in my opinion, because they're going to get home more this year. And LSU was pretty darn good a season ago. They were top 30 in the nation in sacks. Braden Swinson, at one point, was on pace to break LSU's single season sack record. He ended up with 8.5. But now, when you look at this and you look at what their position to do on the defensive line in general, moving Perkins to the star, just look at the defensive line. With Kyle Williams coming in, how often have you heard it? Oh, it's much more what Blake Baker wants to do. They can create havoc from that spot. It just gives them another guy, like a Bernard Gooden. He's much more athletic, guy who can rush the passer. Don McKinley fits into that mold. Hell, even a guy like Jacoby and Guillory, who's a tank of a human. They call him Tank. Before he got hurt, leading into the 24 season, Brian Kelly's like, y'all are going to be surprised how much he's in the backfield. He's a freak athlete. So just in that regard, your risks are going to pay off more because I think LSU's going to get home more this season. But the one that you just can't debunk is the one that goes hand in hand with the risk being rewarded, and that's if transfers upgrade the secondary. And that is the biggest question on LSU's defense. It is the biggest question on LSU's defense. You feel real good about it. Bringing in Mansour Delane, likely to hold down one of the starting cornerback spots for LSU. He can play a little safety if need be. You bring in A.J. Halsey, who is an all-conference player at Houston in the Big 12. To Marcus Cooley, who is, as Brian Kelly put it, a safety that can play nickel. That's massive. You have a healthy Jordan Gilbert as well, but those three transfers have to play a massive, massive role. They have to do that for LSU to reach their goal of winning the national championship. Like, that is the one you can't dispute. You were not good enough back there. A lot of it was talent. Yes, Gilbert's injury plays into that as well. But you have completely remade that room. And your success defensively hinges on that. Because I think you're going to be, I've established, I think you're going to be really good on the defensive line. I think you're going to be great at linebacker. I think LSU is arguably the best team in the country at linebacker. The secondary is going to be that linchpin. And the transfers coming in and living up to the hype and living up to the goal and the lofty expectation that have been placed upon them is huge. The other thing that was not mentioned here is the running game. Like, I would put that way in front of if a wide receiver emerges. LSU's got to be able to run the frigging football. Garrett Nussmeier already proved he can throw for 4,000 yards with no running game. You give him a running game and take some of the pressure off of him, that's going to lead to improved decision-making, and it's going to lead to an even better offensive season than he already put forth with zero running game. Now, that goes hand in hand with the offensive line. You're replacing 4 starters. The 4 starters you're replacing all were drafted, and you couldn't run the ball behind them a year ago. You're better at running back. But is the scheme going to be better understood, better called, better installed than it was a year ago to lead to that? Like, those are the 2 things for me. LSU's got to run the football better, and the secondary's the linchpin. So for me, 2 ifs. That's where I stand. And we won't have the answer to that until LSU starts to play real games. That's not going to be determined in fall camp. Because all we heard a year ago was, oh, they're going to run the ball. You get into the first game, when it really came down to it, they couldn't run the football when they needed to. They're going to have to be able to do that in 2025 if they want to hold that trophy at the end. All right. We'll grab a break. Come back on the other side. Saints, what are the 5 things we're watching in training camp? Give you a bit of a preview next here on AFR.
AFR.
We're brought to you by Duplessis Builders, DuplessisBuilders.net, DuplessisBuilders.net. Y'all, whenever we talk about the pool building process, I don't want this to be boring to you, but it's important that I point out how Duplessis goes about their process, because it gives color and description to why they were able to give a 10-year workmanship warranty. Like when some companies say, we'll build your pool in 2 weeks, like that's not a real thing. At Duplessis, the excavation takes 2 to 3 days. Then they'll shoot the gunite. Takes 21 days for gunite, for concrete to cure. So they're not going to proceed until those 21 days have passed. The product will last longer, so they're not going to rush the process. After you let that tiling and coping cure for 2 weeks, then you add water. Before you add water, then you plaster. So it's why a lot of pools start to fail in 2 to 3 years, because they don't do it right. You'll never worry about that with Duplessis Builders.
After further review, powered by Sunshine, your hometown John Deere dealer in Louisiana.
Brought to you by Shawbills Tire and Auto Service, ShawbillsTire.com. 18 locations in South Louisiana. Find the location nearest you at ShawbillsTire.com. Bumper-to-bumper auto service and name brand tires at wholesale prices. They will always find a way to get you the best possible price for the best possible tires on the road. That's what they do at Shawbills. And when they get you in by selling you the best tires at the cheapest price possible, they're going to treat you like family, and they're going to treat you so good you're going to keep coming back year after year after year every time you need anything for your vehicle. Tires rotated, oil changed, check engine light on, brakes squeaking, whatever's wrong with your vehicle, bring it to Shawbills. Let them give it the once-over, and you can always schedule online, so it's convenient. ShawbillsTire.com. Find the location nearest you at ShawbillsTire.com. Shop tires online at ShawbillsTire.com. Be sure to ask about the Shawbills credit card as well, because you can save $50 off your first purchase when you use the Shawbills credit card only at Shawbills.
All right, welcome back in. After further review here on a Tuesday, presented by Sunshine, your hometown John Deere dealer in Louisiana. Musso in for Moscona. The New Orleans Saints, they reported to training camp here on Tuesday. They will hit the practice field for the first time on Wednesday. Obviously, the big news surrounding that was the retirement of Tyrann Mathieu. We've touched on that early, and we'll touch on it actually a little bit here. What I want to do, though, is give you 5 things that I am watching for here in Saints training camp. Before we get into that, Mickey Loomis, he met with the media today, Saints GM, and talked about the overall vibe around the team, around the franchise heading into this camp.
Yeah, I think, man, there's an excitement about having, a new coaching staff and a lot of changes. We have the quarterback battle that we're going to be observing during this training camp. I think that's exciting to have. There's a lot of newness about that, and I'm really excited about how the offseason went. Excited about Kellen and his staff, and I'm just anxious to get going and see how it all unfolds.
A couple other notes just from the press conference today between Loomis and Kellen Moore. Foster Moreau and Taysom Hill, they'll both officially start training camp on the PUP list, physically unable to perform. That's not overall surprising, but that is now official that they will do that. Mickey Loomis did call the quarterback battle a quote, coach's decision. But that is kind of where we start. When you look at the 5 things, we start with the quarterback battle, obviously. I mean, it's not breaking news. But for me, it's the reps. Like, that's what I really care about here. Because each time I filled in with Matt, and we've talked about this, I've made no bones about it, that I think it's Tyler Shuck's job. Like, I just do. Them giving him the fully guaranteed contract only kind of exacerbates that. But, I mean, that coaches like to bring their guy in. Kellen Moore brought him in. So for me, it's the reps. Kellen Moore talked about the reps would be divvied up evenly between 3. Haener, Rattler, Shuck. I think everyone largely assumes this is a Shuck-Rattler battle, which it is. But they're going to give Haener equal first-team reps up until the first preseason game against the Chargers. And that's where this quarterback this quarterback competition really takes the turn. Do the reps change and how significantly after that game? Because actions speak louder than words, and that's how you will really tell who is the guy, who is the leader in this competition. If they come out of that preseason game against the Chargers and they're still divvying up reps evenly, you just keep going throughout. I mean, that's going to be your telltale sign of how true of a competition is this really. So they'll divide them up 3 ways, but that's ultimately what you want to see there. Mickey Loomis on the quarterback battle.
I think there's so many variables that it's kind of hard to just sit here and dictate them. I thought we saw a lot of good things during the offseason, and yet, we're not playing tackle football in the offseason. So I think this training camp period, particularly the preseason games, are going to be really important in determining who the starter is.
Yes, they will. Thank you, Mickey Loomis. On the number 2, we'll just set that aside. Let Mick get us out there, right? On the number 2, and this is one that I'm surprised isn't being talked about as much. And it's running back behind Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara is 29 years old. That is ancient when it comes to an NFL running back. And while Kamara was productive a season ago, specifically running the football, he played only 14 games. He missed the final 3. Injuries crept up again, as they have really the last handful of seasons for AK. What do you have behind him? How you get Alvin Kamara to maximize himself where he can really play a full season again is having someone to spell him. And I think, man, look, what you have is bodies, and everyone's going to turn to Kendre Miller. And all eyes should go there. It's a guy you spent a 3rd-round pick on in 2023. It's a guy with a lot of promise, a lot of upside, but it's a guy who has not been able to stay healthy either. We all remember Dennis Allen's line. It's hard to make the team from the training room. It was the first day of camp a year ago. I think the animosity between Kendre Miller and Dennis Allen also hampered Kendre Miller's production as well. It puts a lot of unneeded pressure on a guy going into his 2nd season in the NFL. But what it is 14 games so far in 2 years. Can he finally take the next step? If he stays healthy, and that's the big if, can he take the next step and give you that guy behind Alvin Kamara that you so desperately need? The running game is just a massive, massive, massive part of Kellen Moore's offense. I think with the retooling of the offensive line that you have done, it sets you up to better run the football. But you have to have a body behind Alvin Kamara or a couple. You're looking at Miller, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Devin Neal, your 6th-round pick, who I get a lot of people are high on. And maybe he can emerge and burst on the scene as a rookie. But for me, I think it really hones in on Kendre Miller. That guy's got to prove he can stay healthy and prove he can be a productive back for the New Orleans Saints. This is a massive training camp for him. And if it doesn't go well, the questions of behind Alvin Kamara are even bigger. Number 3, safety. Now with Tyrann Mathieu retiring, Jonas Sanker, let's see what you got. And this kind of dovetails into number 4. But this is a guy the Saints spent a third-round pick on, a top 100 selection, who they felt fortunate was still available for them at pick 93. It's a guy who's already gotten some buzz throughout OTAs and minicamp. Okay, can he burst on the scene as a rookie? Well, now he has a golden opportunity. And I talked about this earlier when we were kind of rehashing what's next at safety. For me, it's Jonas Sanker earning that job as a rookie, and you bring in a veteran depth piece. Because ultimately, that would set you up for better success in the future if you're the New Orleans Saints as well. Having Jonas Sanker be out there as a rookie, hopefully play a full season and set himself up to launch himself into the safety ranks of the NFL as a second-year player. But safety is a massive question now. And the other part of that is who they add in training camp, because they will add somebody, 100%. They will do that, because right now you're looking at 4 safeties, basically, and that's it. It's not a lot of depth. But the safety position, absolutely. Now you're keeping a huge eye on that. And Jonas Sanker, first and foremost for me. Now, I said that kind of dovetails into number 4, because number 4 for me is the defensive rookies. Man, you haven't gotten to see them at their best because they played 7-on-7 throughout the entirety of the offseason so far. Now the pads are coming on. I don't know about y'all. I'm fired up to see Danny Stutzman in pads and go out there and hit somebody, because the physicality and the tackling is what stands out about that kid first and foremost. Jonas Sanker in that number as well. Hopefully Quincy Riley's healthy now and he can get out there and put on the pads, and you can see what you have there at cornerback. Even a guy like Vernon Broughton. Now he's going to be fighting in a very crowded room along the defensive line. But now that those guys can finally get out there, play physical football, have some 11-on-11s in pad periods, let's see what they have, because I think each of them can have a role for the New Orleans Saints here in 2025. Again, with Broughton, his former college D-line coach, Bo Davis, is now the New Orleans Saints defensive line coach. You don't think there's potentially a role for that guy? I do. So I'm fired up. I can't wait to see the rookies on defense, because that's really where the question mark remains in the rookie class. Or I should say the biggest question mark remains in the rookie class. Lastly is Trevor Penning on the offensive line. And your offensive line as a whole. Rookies getting into pads, that applies to Kelvin Banks. But now that these guys can actually go out there and hit, let's see how that new structure, that new combination up front works. And if they finally figured out the role for Trevor Penning. Everybody thinks he projects so much better as a guard, and I get it. I think so too. It makes a lot of sense. Just from his size, the physicality, him being best in the run game, like all of that makes a lot of sense. But now is his first foray into playing that position in the NFL. The pads will come on for the first time. How much does he take to that position? And the same deal with Kelvin Banks. Can he play left tackle? They've had him there since rookie minicamp. Do you end up having to flip Taliesin Fuanga back over there? Do you just flip-flop him? There's a lot of questions there as well. But overall, I think the New Orleans Saints have really found their best combination on the offensive line, but training camp will prove it. And I'm fired up to see it as well. There you go. Those are 5 things. 5 things I'm looking for now in Saints training camp. How much of a difference will it make to the outcome of the season? I don't know, but it could make a world of difference 1-2 years down the road for the Saints, when hopefully they are competing for the division again and maybe even something bigger. All right, let's grab a break. We'll come back on the other side. It's After Further Review, presented by Sunshine, your hometown John Deere dealer in Louisiana. We'll talk some college football playoff. Tony Petitti at Big 12 Media Days. He gave his thoughts. We'll dive into him, I should say, next here on AFR.
AFR.
AFR is brought to you by the Watermark Hotel and the Renaissance Hotel, 2 beautiful hotel properties in Baton Rouge, the Watermark downtown, the Renaissance Southtown right there on Bluebonnet. And when it comes to hosting your event, Both the Watermark and the Renaissance are perfect. The Watermark is a gorgeous, elegant spot in downtown Baton Rouge. That wedding reception, that smaller gathering, that meeting space, they can do it. They've kept so much of the history and tradition of that iconic building while modernizing it. The Gregory is a great restaurant inside of the Watermark as well. And then, of course, the Renaissance Hotel. Southtown, right there on Bluebonnet in Baton Rouge. It's more modern. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous hotel property at the Renaissance Hotel where they have meeting space that can accommodate up to 500 people, 7,000 square foot of meeting space, perfectly located right off of Bluebonnet and I-10. It's the Watermark and the Renaissance Hotels in Baton Rouge.
After further review, powered by Sunshine, your hometown John Deere dealer in Louisiana.
We're brought to you by Supper Club. You book your reservation, supperclubbtr.com, supperclubbtr.com. One of the things about Supper Club that I love is if you want to go to Supper Club and be a baller, you can do it. You want to go to Supper Club and order a $5,000 bottle of Chateau Lafite Rothschild, you can do it. You want to go have $400 shots of cognac, you can do it. You can have experiences at Supper Club that usually are reserved for Las Vegas and New York and Paris and Abu Dhabi. Like, that's here in Baton Rouge. But the thing you got to remember as well, if you want to go to Supper Club and have the best steak of your life and have a few appetizers, a dessert, bottle of wine, you can do it as affordably as any other restaurant in town. But the experience at Supper Club is unmatched. Introduced open seating at the bar, first come, first serve. So if you knock off of work, you want to head by Supper Club, you can walk in without a reservation, see if you can grab a bar stool or a table by the bar as well. Have a great dinner, maybe cocktail, close some business. Book your reservation, supperclubbtr.com, supperclubbtr.com.
All right, back here after further review. We'll move pretty quickly in this segment, but I did want to talk about this. Big Ten Media Day is underway up in Indianapolis here on Tuesday. Before Media Days kicked off, though, Tony Petitti, the Big Ten commissioner, gave a one-on-one interview to Ross Dellinger over at Yahoo Sports and talked about college football playoff expansion. And that has been the hottest topic of the college football offseason. I mean, with respect to NIL and rev share and the House settlement and all that mumbo-jumbo, college football playoff expansion is what everybody really wants to talk about because no one's happy with college football's offseason. I mean, postseason. Shocker. No one's ever happy with college football's postseason. Tony Petitti and the Big Ten, they are really the last conference standing that's pushing for the 4-4-2-2-1 model. The SEC has even kind of, brought themselves back with help of their coaches, pushing back on that model to the 5+11. Obviously, the ACC, the Big 12. I mean, Brett Yormark from the Big 12 has been the most outspoken in wanting 5+11. But Tony Petitti and the Big Ten, they've still hitched their wagon to the the 4 automatic qualifiers. He talked to Ross Dellinger about getting on a Zoom meeting and, they're going through all the potential changes to the criteria and the data that is used in the selection committee. And he says, quote, I found myself sitting there thinking that play-in games seem so rational as we look at folks talk about points and subtracting numbers and adding numbers. I'm thinking this is the rational system, and the one where we play games is radical. I love the idea of play-in games. I really do. I think that is awesome. I think that could be a great thing to replace conference championship weekends. I understand that's a money grab in TV, and I get that. But how about selling more games with huge implications on one weekend for a TV contract? That seems like it could bring in a lot of money to me, too. The problem is you would have to find the right cutoff of where teams are actually worthy when it comes to play-in games. Because what you don't want is having a team that's 5-3 in the SEC, or multiple teams that are 5-3 in the SEC potentially having the play-in opportunity there, or a team potentially with a losing record having a play-in opportunity there. Like, that's what you don't want. I'm with Tony Petitti on play-in games. I think that would be awesome. It keeps more teams interested longer, engaged longer, more teams in the fight longer. That's all what everyone wants. So I think that's great. Where I stray from him is his comments on the committee. And he's sticking to that 4 because he wants guaranteed the 4 spots. And I get it. He's stumping for his league, and that's his job, and I 100% understand that. But it's the conversation about the playoff committee and the selection process where I stray from Petitti's line of thinking. He says, quote, because, or let me set it up actually first. He doesn't want more data given to the committee, right? Like strength of schedule. People want that to be factored in more, which it's no surprise he doesn't. Most of the teams in that league play 3 cupcake games, and that would hurt them, even with your 9 conference game schedule. Strength of record, all of those things. Like he doesn't want more data to the committee. So he says, quote, "It's not that we think the selection committee does a poor job. I'm just not sure how you make it better. The more teams you add, the more tough decisions you create. We're going to give the committee more to do. What's the reason to do that? Giving them more work to do and more discretion?" So first of all, the committee does do a poor job, but it's not their fault. They don't have a set criteria. It changes every year. This was something that was huge coming out of SEC spring meetings. It was mentioned by multiple coaches. Brian Kelly brought it up. Kalen DeBoer brought it up. Lane Kiffin brought it up. That the that college football can't have like an RPI or a net ranking because they don't play enough games. You notice in men's and women's basketball, in NCAA baseball, do you notice how we don't spend the entirety of the regular season complaining about the committee? They have selection committees, but they have set criteria. You know this is going to help your ranking. This is going to help that. And I get it. You can't have that type of ranking like an RPI. I understand. But that doesn't mean you can't have criteria set where you know, okay, this is what's going to be factored in by the committee. This is how you need to build your resume. And then you let them make the tough decisions. That can be factored in. Like that can happen. It's not impossible. It's done in every other sport in college. And while people might have gripes about it, you accept it and you move on. Because you say, this is what it comes down to, and we didn't perform well enough in these metrics, and you didn't get in. Okay, can everyone live with that? That's what's going to have to be done. Don't pawn this off on the selection committee and say, oh, we don't think they do a poor job. No, they do it. They're awful. They do a very poor job. But their set of criteria changes each year. So I can understand and say, oh, we want to give them more. No, it's not that you want to give them more. You want to give them, hey, this is what we're doing. Go make your decision. Hey, commissioners. Hey, ADs. Hey, coaches. This is what we're doing. Build your schedules. How many conference games are you going to play based off of this? Make these games that LSU and Texas and Ohio State and Georgia and Alabama are playing actually matter. And don't just incentivize everybody to go play nothing but cupcakes in the non-conference. In terms of what you want to do in expansion, yeah, 5+11 makes a lot of sense if you're not going to have play-in games. Like, that is the route. And Tony Petitti, while he's still in favor of the 4-4-2-2-1, he did mention in this article with Ross Dellinger that 5-11 can't even begin to be considered by the Big Ten until leagues decide they're going to play equitable conference game schedules uniform throughout college football. So, you know what that means? Once the SEC officially moves to 9 games, you could possibly be looking at 5-11 for 16 teams. It sounds like you're not getting expansion in 2026 either, which I'm okay with. But what you have to do is better set up the selection committee with a set bunch of criteria that doesn't change. What do you think's the best way to evaluate football teams? Make that known so programs can better equip themselves to meet that criteria. And if you want to keep the committee, let them decide. But don't keep changing things up on them. Or just bring back the BCS and let that determine who's in the playoff. Selection process for that was fine. You only had 2 teams. That was your issue. Now you have 12, and you could have 16. Tony Petitti on the college football playoff and expansion. We're going to grab a break. Come back on the other side. Tigers and the Pros to close out hour 2. Stay here.
After further review.
Love telling you about Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness, but something that I really want to stress, especially with Mother's Day coming up this weekend. So Goodwood is also partnered and owned by Unique Physique and coming soon, Unique Aesthetics. So the 3-in-1 will have a full service and complimentary health services plan there with aesthetics and, of course, hormone therapy and all the likes. Well, if you go to shopwithmatt.com, my name, shopwithmatt.com, they are pre-selling at incredible discounts products and services for Unique Aesthetics. Botox, skin tightening and lifting, of course, gift cards, laser, hair removal, other things like body contouring, sculpting, filler, all the micro needling. And right now, the lowest prices you will see. Shopwithmatt.com. Use the code UPLoyal10.
After further review, powered by Sunshine, your hometown John Deere dealer in Louisiana.
It is my pleasure this week to welcome our new partner on to After Further Review, Our Lady of the Lake. Of course, great partnership as well as the official championship health partner of LSU. When you think who takes care of the LSU athletes, well, it's Our Lady of the Lake and the physicians there. Game-changing care, keeps athletes at their best, builds stronger, healthier Louisiana for all of us at every level. I've told you about my experience throughout my life living in Baton Rouge at Our Lady of the Lake, from volunteering at the Ronald McDonald Playroom to helping raise funds through so many different fundraising efforts for the standalone Children's Hospital to taking my son to see specialists there at Our Lady of the Lake Children's Hospital, to my own personal health. My GP is Dr. Kurt Chastain with Our Lady of the Lake Men's Health. It's good enough for the LSU athletes. It's good enough for me and you, of course. It's Our Lady of the Lake. You can learn more at ololrmc.com/LSU.
All right, wrapping up hour number 2 here of AFR. We'll do so with Tigers and the Pros.
Tigers in the Pros. They still bleed purple and gold. They're just really rich now.
Obviously, we begin with Tyrann Mathieu. Tyrann Mathieu retires from the NFL here on Tuesday, a 12-year career, 3-time All-Pro first team, 3-time Pro Bowler, a Super Bowl champion with the Kansas City Chiefs, and, of course, finishes his career with the hometown New Orleans Saints after 3 productive seasons in the black and gold. Congratulations and happy retirement to Tyrann Mathieu. Jamal Adams is back in the NFL. The Raiders have signed 3-time Pro Bowl safety Jamal Adams on Tuesday, reuniting him with Pete Carroll. How about that? 29 years old, Jamal Adams is. He played his first 4 seasons under Carroll in Seattle, was very productive in those years. Also a first-team All-Pro back in 2019. We will see now as Adams has amassed 85 career games now with the Raiders. See if he can resurrect his career a little bit. Paul Skeens, 6 shutout innings for the Pirates on Monday night. Allowed 3 hits, a walk, punched out 6, and he got the win. 3-0. See? Was that so hard, Pittsburgh, to just give him 3 runs and he takes you the rest of the way? 5th win of the year for Paul Skeens. It was Kevin Gausman also getting the win. 7 innings, a 1-run ball against the Yankees. His 7th win of the season. He punched out 8. Jake Fraley puts together an awesome night at the plate for the Reds. 2 for 2, a double. He drove in a run as well. Also drew a walk. They were facing the Nationals. Cole Henry got his 3rd hold of the season. 1 shutout inning with a strikeout. And we'll wrap it up with Josh Smith. Josh Smith, 2 for 3 a night ago for the Rangers. He was playing second base, his 17th double of the season. He also scored 2 runs. That is Tigers in the pros. This is After Further Review here on a Tuesday. We're presented by Sunshine, your hometown John Deere dealer in Louisiana, sunequip.com, sunequip.com. We're going to grab a break, come back on the other side. Sports Center, national headlines, and then Ross Jackson joins the show. What's next for the Saints after Tyrann Mathieu calls it a career? Ross Jackson will tell us that next here on AFR.
After Further Review.
Quick reminder about Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry, lmfj.com, lmfj.com for Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry. They're the best. If you are, gentlemen, thinking about popping the question and you're thinking about where am I going to go buy that diamond, I want you to consider this. There are places that will sell you man-made lab diamonds, but what are you buying? It's according to its makeup and characteristics, sure, diamond. But is it going to hold its value? Like, is that the way you want to say, I love you, I want to spend the rest of my life with you? Go to Lee Michaels. Go to Lee Michaels. Walk in the door. Experience the thing I talk about all the time, which is the Lee Michaels experience. It's Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry with 10 locations. Baton Rouge, 2 locations in Baton Rouge. New Orleans, Lafayette, Shreveport, Mississippi, Texas as well. 10 locations across 3 states. It's Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry. Thrill her, gentlemen. Thrill her with a gift in the red box from Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry.